Hi guys, Laura here. I'm here to do my January reading wrap up. I was able to read 6, listen to 1 book, which I was very, very impressed with myself. It was not what I planned to read. I planned to read a lot more. But I neglected to remind myself that these books are pretty huge. I also apologize for my cough or if I sound a little bit congested. I do have a pretty bad cold, but I wanted to put this video up anyway, or I wouldn't have got up until late in the month. So I hope you guys will be okay that I have a small cold. But I was able to read 6 books, listen to 1, and start listening to another. As I also mentioned in my last video, I started being a blogger for the Bookish Things and blog, and I've posted a bunch of reviews over there. They're also all on my blog, but I've done a lot of book blogs for her, and I'm going to be continuing working with her. And I also started doing audiobook reviews for eStories, and I'm in the middle of listening to City of Glass by Cassandra Clare. I'm going to do a whole video about that, explaining why I'm listening to the series and how I got working with eStory once I finish it. And I also finished listening to Can I Have Your Attention Please by James Corden, who is a actor, a comedian, and in America, he runs the Late Night Show with James Corden, which was super funny and actually kind of a little bit depressing. I didn't realize his life was so complicated. I really, really like the story, so if you want like a funny but also kind of heartfelt read, I highly recommend you listen to it because I love when British men tell me stories, and he is British. But let's start talking about what I actually completed reading in January. The first book that I finished reading in January, and I do have a review about this book on my channel, is Hammer of Thor by Rick Riordan. This is the second book in the Magnus Chase series. I really love this book. I gave it 5 stars. I loved everything about the story, but especially I loved the diversity of the characters represented. And also the way that they dealt with gender identity in this story was super, super unique, and I really, really enjoyed it. I think Rick Riordan is really challenging kids to see normalcy everywhere they look and not differences, and I applaud that. So I'm so excited for book 3, which is The Ship of the Dead, and also to see the long-awaited Camp Half-Blood cameo that I have been dying for. So yeah, it was very, very good. 5 stars. If you want more of my thoughts, check out my non-spoiler review about this book. I just posted it a couple of hours ago, so go check that out. But oh yeah, 5 stars, really, really good. The next book that I read was Passenger by Alexandra Bracken. This was actually a reread for me because I wanted to reread this before I read Wayfarer. And the first time I read this, I gave this book 4 stars, but rereading it, I gave it 5 stars. This is a time travel novel where Etta learns that she is an unexpected time traveler and winds up going on this epic adventure with an unexpected travel companion. I really, really love this book. As also with this book, it has a lot of diversity, and it uses history to its advantage, but also really attacks some of the long issuing resentments of our society, like women's rights, African American rights, and I really, really enjoyed it. I thought the world building was spectacular, and Alexandra Bracken really, really writes a spectacularly well crafted, beautiful story. So if you want a historical fiction story that focuses on time travel but actually really uses history in such a creative way, highly recommend it. Very, very good. Gave it 5 stars on a reread. And I also did a video about this duology as well. And then the next book I read was Wayfarer by Alexandra Bracken. And this is the conclusion to the duology. Loved it. I gave it 4 stars. Again, I feel like if I was when I reread this story, it might get bumped up to 5 stars. The book did have a couple of slow moments, I'll be a little bit honest. But I feel like doing such a complicated story like this book had very, very complicated world building. You need to have a little bit of downtime to also not only craft the world but also conclude the world. But you got to meet a bunch of new characters that we had heard about in book 1, and there was a lot of different team-ups. I do classify book 1 as a romance, a heavy romance, but I classify this one as is a book about friendship and also about what responsibility time travels have to the time stream. So I thought that it was a very, very unique story, and I really, really enjoyed it, and I loved the interactions that happened between all the characters as well. So that was my concluding thoughts on that, but I do have a video about the conclusion of the series. And then the next book that I finished reading was The Scorch Trials by James. This is the second book in the Maze Runner series, and I wanted to reread it so I can finally complete the series and read the prequel novels. I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. I loved all the different locations that we got. I liked that the differences that the new things we learned about all the characters. The characterization of Teresa in this book has always bothered me like a little bit. So that's why I couldn't give it like 5 stars. I just felt her characterization was like off and it wasn't like consistent throughout the whole novel. But overall, I really, really liked it, and I love like reading the books now because Dylan O'Brien is always in my head when I read, and I love Dylan O'Brien. But yeah, it was great, and I like watched the movie, and the movie is such a different beast, but I really, really enjoy the movie as well. But the book was also very, very strong, and I'm very excited, hopefully next month, to reread Death Cure. And then the next book that I finished reading was Lady Night by Tamora Pierce, and this is the final book in the Protector of the Small series. And I said this on Twitter, and I said this on a bunch of other places. I don't think a book has ever like hit me in the feels so much like Lady Night, especially in our current political climate. This book really was like so like perfect, the perfect book for me to read in the start of 2017. I love the character of Cal. I love the journey she went on. I loved all that she experienced. But I really needed a story of hope and hope rising, and that's what the story was for me. And I just loved it. I thought that it was a great conclusion, and I loved that the focus of her story really wasn't on romance, and I think that is a lesson that all young ladies need to learn. But I really, really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to read Trickster's Choice next month. And then the final book that I finished reading in January was Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, and this is the first book in the Illuminae series. I'm not going to talk too much about this because I really don't want to spoil you guys, but I did have a video review about this last year when I read it for the first time. But this is the book that's wrote in a multimedia format through like emails and IMs and other things, but it's about a space disaster that follows these 2 characters as they're trying to start their lives over or save their lives. And it's a really, really cool story. I recommend, as I said previously in all of my reviews about this stuff, you have to get a physical copy of this series. If you listen to it or if you read it on a Kindle, I think you're really, really shortchanging yourself out of the experience. But I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I highly recommend that you read it, and the sequel, Gemina, which I'm in the middle of currently reading. But those are all my thoughts about my books for January 2017. Check out my February 2017 wrap-up, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!